Billionaire CEO's daughter exposed. One waitress's touching heart made her hidden pain finally revealed. Jenna stood behind the counter of the Maplewood diner, her apron stained with the remnants of coffee and grease, while the weight of grief anchored her somber smile. It felt like a betrayal each time she greeted the regulars with warmth, knowing that behind each friendly "good morning" was a heart heavy with loss. Her father's sudden death had left her family buried under waves of bills and unspoken anguish, the diner seemingly a feeble refuge from the relentless currents of grief. The bell rang, a jarring reminder that it was her turn to serve again. Grace walked in, radiant in her designer clothes, all polished appearance and poised demeanor. Her entrance was so stark against the diner's modest decor that Jenna felt an uncomfortable twist of envy, layered with sympathy. Grace was just another customer, but there was something familiar in those eyes, a loneliness that felt all too relatable. As Jenna filled her coffee cup, their casual small talk shifted to confessions. Grace shared fragments of her gilded life, painting it like a cage meant to contain but never to liberate. Jenna leaned in, empathizing without knowing she was learning. Their conversations pierced the veil of their lives, revealing mutual burdens. Jenna felt her insides knot. Here was a woman trapped by societal expectations, mirroring her own struggle against poverty. Suddenly the diner had transformed. It was a place suffused with laughter but also suffocated under silent woes. This friendship was built on the intersection of pain, where both women felt shackled, yet Jenna's heart ached with the pull away from unity. But as days blurred into weeks, Jenna stumbled upon unsettling truths about Grace's father. The CEO's business practices had ravaged the local economy, laying waste to families like hers. The coffee never tasted as bitter as that revelation felt. Each time Jenna saw Grace's smile, deceit lingered like a ghost between them. Jenna was faced with a moral dilemma. Should she remain loyal to a friend or protect her community from the man who threatened its very foundation? The diner had become a battleground, a place of torment where each visit from Grace twisted the knife deeper into her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The night of the gala approached, an evening teeming with glitz that made Jenna feel like an imposter in her modest dress. The tension curled around her stomach like a vice as she searched for Grace among the elegantly adorned faces. What would she say? How could she reveal the truth without tearing apart a bond that had become her lifeline amidst the shadows? The memories of heartfelt laughter echoed, yet the gnawing dread of confrontation loomed larger. Each step toward Delane, the man Jenna had grown to loathe, felt like a step into quicksand, threatening to swallow her whole. Would she have the courage to expose the darkness lurking behind their newfound friendship? Or would she become yet another casualty of silence? The gala's atmosphere pulsed with suffocating anticipation as Jenna's heart raced, seconds cascading into an abyss of uncertainty, waiting for her decisive moment. Jenna maneuvered through the crowd, each glittering gown and tailored suit amplifying her insecurities. The chandeliers overhead caught the light and refracted it like a million eyes watching her every move. She clenched her fists, fighting against the waves of self-doubt crashing over her. Every smile that flitted across her face felt rehearsed, as though displayed for an audience she resented. "Jenna, over here!" Grace's voice cut through the din, pulling Jenna from her thoughts. Grace waved, her expression beaming with the confidence of someone who seemed untouchable. But today, the depths of Grace's sparkly exterior held a complexity Jenna could finally recognize, a fragility aching to break free. "Wow, you look beautiful," Jenna managed, though the words felt hollow against her churning anxiety. The two women embraced, and Jenna's resolve faltered for a second, her heart thundering as they pulled apart. "Thank you." This dress is a total splurge, Grace chirped, adjusting the waist of the gown. But you're glowing. Jenna's warmth faded as the reminder of why she was even here weighed heavily on her conscience. With every heartbeat echoing in her ears, she glanced toward Delane, his laughter like nails on a chalkboard. She steeled herself. This wasn't just about friendship, it was about integrity, choice, and the escalating chaos around her family. Grace, can we talk privately? Jenna's voice trembled, unsure if she had the strength for her next move. A flicker of confusion passed over Grace's eyes, but she nodded, leading Jenna away from the thrumming crowd. Found in a quieter corner, Jenna hesitated, focusing on her breathing. I need to tell you something, she began, the words clawing their way up her throat. Sure, what's on your mind? Grace's sunlit demeanor dimmed. You know my dad. Jenna stumbled, internal conflict swirling. The recent layoffs and the way businesses have closed. It's your father's doing. For the first time, Jenna saw something fracture in Grace's expression. The sparkle dulled, and a vulnerability shimmered beneath. What do you mean? Every time I serve at the diner, I see the effects. Families destroyed, dreams shattered. You can't be blind to it. Jenna fired, the anguish untethering her tongue. Your dad is destroying lives. Tension gripped the air tightly around them. Grace's eyes flickered with uncertainty, coal-black shadows underpinning the shine of her world. He's a businessman. That's not an excuse, Jenna shot back. You need to see the truth for what it is, Grace. He's not just a businessman. He's a man taking from people like me to swell his wealth. The silence stretched as Grace digested Jenna's words. Realization tightened around them like a noose, their fates suddenly interlocked. The woman Jenna had once envied now stood before her, fragile, conflicted, bound by the narrative of her lineage. I didn't know. Grace broke the stillness, the hesitance shifting into something deeper. I thought I understood. Understand this. Your loyalty is tied to your father's choices, and you need to decide what that means for you. Is it worth all this glamour if it comes at the price of so many lives? Grace's face flushed with a mix of anger and heartbreak, and for the first time, Jenna could feel the foundation of their friendship rattling. Would they emerge whole on the other side of this moment, or would this be the fissure that tore them apart? You don't know what you're asking of me, Grace whispered, the words heavy with betrayal. I know I'm asking you to choose your own path, one that's not dictated by him. With a single glance back toward the gala's buzzing excitement, Jenna felt time stretch, the weight of their friendship poised on the edge of collapse. What would Grace decide? Would she rise to confront her legacy or hide behind the facade? The stakes were rising higher, and uncertainty hung palpably in the air. As Grace shifted, the next words on her lips could shatter everything or forge a new beginning. The air crackled with possibility as Jenna's heart raced. Jenna, I need to think. The ground beneath them shook, promising revelations yet to come, and Jenna braced herself for the spiral that lay ahead. Jenna stood frozen, the whirlwind of emotions swirling within her intensified by the heavy silence that had settled between her and Grace. The tension crackled like electricity in the air, filling the space with unspoken words that either held the potential to heal or destroy. The colorful gala, with its extravagant display of wealth and opulence, faded into the background, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment that felt both momentous and precarious. Grace's expression was a mix of confusion and determination as she weighed Jenna's words. She had always been the light of the room, effortlessly commanding attention, but now her shimmering exterior had dulled. Jenna felt a pang of sympathy mingled with her own swell of anxiety. Would Grace find the courage to confront the complexities of her family's legacy, or would she retreat into the comfort of denial? Jenna, Grace finally spoke, her voice a whisper laced with uncertainty. I need some time to process this. As Grace turned to step away, Jenna's instinct fought against the urge to let her go. Taking a deep breath, she reached out, grasping Grace's arm gently. Wait, just know this. Facing the truth might be painful, but it's necessary. Don't bury your head in the sand just because it's easier. The conversation left a bitter taste on Jenna's tongue, echoing her own fears about challenging the status quo that had cradled her own family in turmoil. Would she dare to take her own advice and confront her father about the layoffs? The mere thought sparked a new urgency beneath her determination. Her next steps rooted in the same duality she had witnessed in Grace. Jenna's heart raced as she watched Grace pause, her expression softening as she struggled to align responsibility with loyalty. It mirrored Jenna's own dilemma. Often she had found refuge in the diner, her part-time job a reprieve from her family's increasing expectations. Her father, consumed by a desire for success at any cost, had trampled on the hurt of others for his gain. The realization made her gut twist. Was she just another cog in that machine, or could she redefine her role? Pushing her own doubts aside, Jenna resolved then and there to take action, not only for herself, but for all those affected. She needed to confront her father with the same resolve she had displayed in arguing with Grace. It was time to challenge the silence that had allowed injustices to thrive, not only in her father's world but also in her own life. With newfound determination, Jenna stepped back into the gala. The thrum of laughter and music washed over her like a tide, shocking her back into the present. She scanned the crowd, seeking Delane, whose presence loomed like a shadow. He was the architect of her family's strife, and though she'd long been a bystander to corporate decisions, it was clear that this turbulence would only end when she voiced her truth. "Excuse me," she murmured to a passerby, her voice steadier than she felt. Every step toward Delane felt like a small rebellion against the betrayal and disillusionment her family had been shrouded in for years. "Delane," she called out, catching his attention and nearly choking on the anxiety that turned into a steady fire inside her. "I need to talk to you. Now." His brow furrowed, surprise flickering in his eyes as he noted the urgency in her voice. The moment stood poised on the threshold of change, the outcome uncertain. Would he be receptive, or would this confrontation lead to deeper divides? As she approached, Jenna could feel the weight of expectation pressing down, a pressure she had long been trying to escape. But this was different. This time she felt more than a mere participant in a tragic narrative. She was the author of her own story. "Jenna, what's wrong?" Delane asked, concern weaving through his tone. The keywords hung in the air, begging her to take the plunge. Would she uncover the truth, risking everything? Jenna steeled herself, ready to reclaim her voice. The stakes could not be higher. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, everything shifted. A sudden commotion at the edge of the hall drew their attention, the sound of raised voices filling the air. With her heart pounding, a new wave of anxiety washed over her. Would she be able to seize this moment of reckoning, or would a distraction sway her from the words she desperately needed to say? The tumult outside promised more than she anticipated, a cascade of turmoil that would affect not just her resolution, but the entire landscape of her life. Jenna instinctively turned toward the source of the uproar, her heart racing. In the midst of alertness, she felt Delane's eyes on her, waiting, perhaps hoping for an invitation back to the conversation they'd paused. But the ethereal glow of the gala around her faded into a tunnel of noise that spiraled into chaos. "What the hell is going on?" she murmured, her gaze fixated on the growing crowd forming a barrier against the elegant backdrop of the gala. It was enough to momentarily distract her from the confrontation she had so desperately needed to initiate. As she took a cautious step closer, the murmurs began to crystallize into words. A confrontation was breaking out between executives at her father's company and several disgruntled former employees. Voices raised, accusations, some directed at Delane himself, filled the air, igniting a sense of urgency within Jenna. Jenna stood at the precipice of two worlds, her finger twitching at the boundary between family loyalty and her burgeoning voice for justice. Her breath quickened. She knew this was more than just another dispute. It was a manifestation of the frustrations she had witnessed time and again, always brushed under the rug in her father's polished world. "Delane?" She finally turned back to him, desperation threading through her voice. "If you care about your reputation, we need to do something about this. This isn't just business, it's personal for those people." His face flickered with irritation and impatience. "You don't understand. This is a public relations nightmare. If we just what? Her voice rose louder than intended, mixing with the clamor outside. If you ignore it, it will become a monstrous spectacle. It's not just about appearances anymore. Those are real lives out there. Delane took a breath, the facade of cool composure beginning to crack. She witnessed flickers of something deeper in his eyes. Fear, perhaps. It was unsettling. Had she ever looked at him through a lens of understanding? Jenna, this isn't the right time or place. Then when is? She cut him off, urgency pushing her to a breaking point. You think by shutting it down now it'll go away? They deserve to have their say. People deserve to be heard, just like I do. The words hung between them, charged with the tension that had been building. Delane paused, his expression shifting as if reconsidering her words, a sliver of doubt creeping into his certainty. She knew then that her role was not merely that of a daughter or employee, but a catalyst for change. Let's go, she urged, feeling a surge of determination wash over her. Show me how to help. I can't bear witness to this injustice without doing something. He hesitated, the weight of moments ticking by. The noise from outside swelled and receded, drawing in energy around them like a tide. This was the juncture, Jenna realized, where she could choose to harness her voice or continue to let it be drowned out by others. With a nod begrudgingly given, Delane moved to lead her towards the crowd, but Jenna faltered for a moment. What was she about to step into? Beyond her father's stronghold lay a chasm of harsh truths, broken spirits and shattered dreams that mirrored her own unvoiced frustrations. As they pushed through the throng, Jenna caught glimpses of faces in despair, anger boiling to the surface. With every step closer to the center, she grappled with the enormity of her decision. This was uncharted territory, but sometimes to carve out a path, one had to face all that lay ahead. A familiar face broke through the chaos as she stepped into the light. One of the former employees her father had laid off, now shouting about their plight. The figure locked eyes with her, and a spark ignited within Jenna. It was now or never. This was her moment of truth, both terrifying and exhilarating, one that would shape not just her relationship with her father, but also her understanding of her own convictions. Jenna! The voice called, catching the attention of the crowd. What are you doing here? As all eyes shifted towards her, the weight of expectation settled heavily on her shoulders. Would she stand up for truth, or retreat back to the shadows of complacency she had always known? The choice loomed before her with dizzying intensity. In an instant, Jenna felt the gravitational pull of her past collide with the fervency of her future. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, each revelation sparking a flicker of the woman she could become. It's time, she whispered to herself, the whisper barely audible above the rising din. Moments away from transforming her silence into action, Jenna wondered whether she could truly ignite the change she desperately sought. But before she could begin, another voice cut through the turmoil, one she never expected. The owner of the voice had secrets of his own, and in that moment, Jenna understood that she was not the only one on the verge of an awakening. Would this connection propel her into the heart of the change, or would it unravel everything she had tried to build? The next confrontation awaited, and its ramifications could alter her fate forever. The vibrant chaos swirled around Jenna, each noise a stark reminder of her inadequacies. She struggled to quell the rising tide of anxiety as all eyes fixed on her, each gaze heavy with expectation. Time seemed to stretch, the seconds morphing into a palpable weight pressing against her chest. The familiar face from the crowd, a woman who once held a secure position in her father's company, drew closer, anguish etched into her features. You're just like them, the woman spat, an edge of raw desperation in her voice. Another privileged elite, standing there while we fight for our dignity. Jenna's heart sank as she absorbed the accusation, yet beneath the flood of shame buzzed a flicker of indignation. This wasn't a moment for defensiveness, it was a moment for revelation. I am not just standing here, she replied, her voice rising despite her trembling. I'm here because I want to understand what's happening. I want to stand with you. The woman narrowed her eyes, skepticism etched across her face. And why should we trust you? You've had everything handed to you. Jenna swallowed hard, feeling the sting of her privilege. Though those words carried an undeniable truth, they stirred something deeper within her, a determination to break the cycle. Her life had been enveloped by distractions, kept at arm's length from the realities that shaped the world outside. She took a step forward, her voice steady. "You're right. I haven't lived your struggles, but I can learn. I want to start changing the narrative." The crowd seemed to pause, some faces softening while others remained bristled, hesitant. Energy shifted. This was no longer about Delane or her father's legacy. It was about her and her willingness to confront her discomfort. "Change begins with understanding," she continued, drawing on the words she had rehearsed in private but had never anticipated delivering. "Tell me your stories. Together maybe we can find a way to be heard." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Perhaps it was her earnestness that flickered hope within them, or perhaps they appreciated a break from the tension. As Jenna spoke, she sensed movement in Delane, who lingered just behind her. She realized she was drawing strength from speaking directly to the people he often viewed as mere statistics. The crowd had reflected what she had come to detest most, her father's detachment from the lives of those affected by his decisions. With a deep breath, Jenna positioned herself more firmly in front of the gathering, inviting the stories to flow forth. A man stepped forward, his voice strong yet laced with vulnerability. He spoke of his years of dedication, the shock of losing his job after a decade of loyalty, and how the severance package was nothing compared to the strained relationship with his family that followed. "Each of us felt the sting of betrayal differently," the man said. "For some of us, it was the fear of losing everything. For others, it was simply the loss of a place where they felt valued." As he shared, Jenna felt an unexpected wave of empowerment swell within her, an awakening she had long shunned. Her background offered her resources, but her true strength lay in her capacity to empathize. The more she connected with their struggles, the clearer her purpose became. When the man stepped back, a fire ignited in her core. This was her key to healing, both for herself and the people impacted by her father's decisions. What she had deemed a personal conflict now transformed into a mission. She could use this moment to challenge not just her family's legacy but also to reshape it. But the challenge remained unfurling just beneath the surface. Delane's presence weighed heavily on her conscience, bringing with it the harsh reality that any forward movement would undoubtedly disrupt the fragile equilibrium she had established with him. Before Jenna could voice her thoughts, another figure emerged from the crowd, the man who had cut through the tumult earlier. "Jenna, we were led to believe that the company cared about us. Do you really have the power to change anything?" His question, heavy with doubt and resilience, pushed the atmosphere tense once more. Jenna stood at a crossroads. If she answered truthfully, she could pull Delane into the light, exposing everything that had been hidden behind corporate facades. But would she ultimately betray him in the process? The stakes were rising, and with every heartbeat echoing her uncertainty, she knew the path forward would be fraught with peril, not just for her, but for everyone who had dared to expose their truths. In that moment, Jenna felt the weight of destiny shift on its axis. Would standing firm in her convictions lead to an expansion of hope, or would it unleash a torrent of consequences beyond her control? The moment of truth loomed, and she felt the pull of a reckoning magnify. The question now was, how far was she willing to go to free herself from her family's shackles and forge her own identity? Jenna could feel the weight of the man's question hanging in the air, thick and suffocating, as she instinctively pulled herself taller. She searched for an answer, her mind racing and heart pounding. Images of Delane flashed through her thoughts, a constant reminder of the dubious loyalties she could betray. "Power," she began, her voice steady but trembling at the edges, "isn't just about what you have. It's about what you choose to do with it." The statement felt revolutionary in her mouth, yet she understood the irony that came with her lineage. "I may have access to systems of influence that you don't, but with that comes a responsibility to act. I intend to face that responsibility." Tension ricocheted throughout the crowd. Some people leaned in, intrigued, while others remained skeptically aloof. The atmosphere reflected her internal conflict, intense anticipation mixed with trepidation. She felt like a candle suspended in a tempest, flickering dangerously close to extinguishment. Are you ready to confront the truth behind your family's facade? Another voice challenged, sharper this time. You're standing here, but what about your father? Will he hear us, or will you simply hide behind your privilege? The question was accusatory, yet justified. Jenna inhaled deeply, steeling herself against the potential waves of panic that teetered at the edges of her composure. This was the moment she had sought, a chance to delve into the murky depths of her father's world and emerge bolder, uncovering hidden strengths within her that had been dormant for too long. I know that confronting him won't be easy, she acknowledged, heart racing at the thought of the inevitable confrontation. But I cannot stand idly by any longer, nor can I allow fear of tension to silence me. His worldview is not my own, and I refuse to be an extension of his legacy without understanding how it impacts you. Some faces softened, others remained hardened, but for the first time she could see varied emotions dancing across the crowd, hope intermingling with skepticism, the potential for trust tempered by prudence. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, and she felt a growing awareness of the vast expanse of her own responsibility. Empathy surged through her with each story she encountered, illuminating the path ahead. She was grappling not just with her family's powerful grip, but also with the complexity of who she wanted to be. Could she genuinely create change without breaking the very fabric of a life she had known? Jenna felt the inklings of doubt creeping back. The clarity she had briefly grasped threatened to retract into the shadows, but then she thought of the man's story, the sacrifices and struggles of countless others woven throughout their community. This was not merely about her. This was about a larger narrative she had the power to influence. Let me meet him and let him hear what you've said, Jenna declared, a fire igniting her resolve. I will not make demands for you, but I will stand here, ready to fight for the truth and for the voices that haven't been heard. A murmur of agreement rippled through a small section of the audience, but it was not enough to dispel the storm that fueled Delane's heavy gaze. She caught his eyes across the crowd, his expression unreadable, yet charged with a mix of admiration and apprehension. In that moment, a silent pact was forged, a resistance rooted in truth. A deep yearning for change bound them together amid the throbbing chaos of her realization. Yet, as resolve swelled within her, the churning tide of uncertainty refused to recede completely. Their acceptance felt like a fragile glimmer in an ongoing storm. Jenna understood that the journey forward meant potential ruptures, not just in her relationship with her father, but also with Delane. How would he react when faced with the fallout of her newfound determination? Could their relationship withstand the tumultuous changes she longed to pursue? The gravity of the path ahead weighed heavily on her shoulders, but the truth stung at the back of her throat. There was no turning back now, and with each escalating decision, she felt herself slipping deeper into uncharted territories. Jenna realized, as she stepped deeper into this unknown venture, that every decision meant recalibrating her notions of love, loyalty, and legacy, ultimately defining who she was becoming in the process. As she stood on the precipice of action, she couldn't help but wonder. Was she ready to unveil the dark truths looming within her family's empire, and, more importantly, would she have the courage to face the aftermath? Jenna's heart raced as she stepped out from the crowd, her pulse echoing against the cobblestones beneath her. The faces that had once felt like a sea of spectators now served as mirrors, reflecting her newfound resolve. Each step took her closer to a transformation forged in the depths of her discomfort, amplifying every moment of uncertainty into a churning anticipation. It was no longer just a question of her identity. It was a reckoning, a chance to emerge whole and unashamed. She paused on the edge of the gathering, the voices around her shifting from a distant hum to fractured snippets of doubt and hope. They were not merely comments from the background, they were pieces of a larger puzzle she had long evaded. Suddenly, every story of struggle she'd heard over the years crystallized into urgent clarity. There was a profound connection she needed to nurture within herself, a merging of her lineage with the voices of those her family had overlooked. The conversation with Delane from earlier loomed large in her mind. What had begun as a tentative relationship now felt like a lifeline stretched across two worlds. But would he follow her on this journey? Would he stand beside her in the face of her inevitable confrontation with her father? Her previous confidence wavered, replaced by an anxiety that churned in the depths of her stomach. As she made her way to her car, she spotted Delane leaning against the vehicle, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. The tension of the moment crystallized with the late afternoon sun casting elongated shadows. Emboldened by her earlier declarations, Jenna approached him with a determined step, intent on opening the dialogue that had become essential to her quest. "Delane, I need to talk," she stuttered, her mind racing with every word she needed to articulate. His brow quirked slightly, suspicion mingling with curiosity. "Talk about what? You just made a pretty bold statement back there." "I know I did. It felt necessary, but I can't do this without you." She steeled herself, searching his eyes for any sign of understanding. "I want to confront my father. I want to challenge the way he runs his empire. But I'm terrified. I don't know what it's going to do to me, or us." Her admission hung in the air like smoke, rapidly dissipating in the tension that replaced it. Delane's gaze softened, yet a flicker of apprehension lingered. "Are you ready for the fallout? Your dad won't just let you waltz in and throw his world upside down, Jenna." "I know, but I can't keep running from it. My silence has only protected my comfort, not the truth. I thought about all the people who don't have a voice, who have suffered because of my family's decisions. How can I be part of that anymore?" "By acknowledging that your voice holds power," he replied, each word deliberate. "You understand that, don't you? The question is whether you're prepared to wield it." His response ignited a fire within her, a recognition that power and vulnerability could coexist without diminishing one another. Jenna found herself yearning for clarity, fueled by the prospect of self-discovery rather than avoidance. There was an undeniable force propelling her forward, yet the weight of wisdom shared by Delane lent her strength. "Will you help me prepare?" she asked formally. "Not just for my father, but for the way we'll need to navigate the monster he's created." Delane searched her face, seeking any inkling of doubt, yet nodding slowly. "Yes, but I won't sugarcoat anything. This journey is going to require all of you, the good and the ugly." A soft reassurance spread through her, a bridge that united their shared determination. Jenna's mind raced with plans, strategies, and the intricate web of potential repercussions, but one insistent thought kept surfacing. This was finally the beginning of her emancipation. Yet, with this newfound solidarity, came a new question. How would they manage the inevitable backlash? Deliberate surprise gatherings and alliances were in her future, but could she hold her ground against the tidal wave ready to crash around her? As Jenna prepared to engage in her father's world, she felt the tremors of impending chaos. But a grin flashed across her face as she realized that for the first time, she wasn't merely a participant, she was determined to rewrite the rules entirely. How would she navigate the storm brewing ahead in her family's empire, and what sacrifices would it require of her to confront the past while forging a new path forward? Jenna tightened her grip on the steering wheel as she drove away from the gathering, her mind racing with the weight of their conversation. The radio buzzed in and out of focus, drowned out by the cacophony of her thoughts. Each turn on the winding roads felt like a pathway leading into an uncertain future, and her heart pounded with both excitement and trepidation. "What now?" she whispered to herself, recognizing this was a pivotal moment. She had taken a step forward, but the reality of what lay ahead twisted in her gut. Delane's words replayed in her mind, the need to prepare. With a determination that surprised her, she acknowledged it was time to engage fully. There was no more room for hesitation. After parking in her driveway, Jenna settled at her dinette table, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the chaos of her scattered notes and ideas. This would be her strategy session, a planning ground for the confrontation with her father. She envisioned the kind of approach Delane would advocate, strategic, unyielding, yet compassionate. Could she embody that balance? Pulling out her laptop, Jenna opened a new document, tentatively typing, "What I want to confront." Her fingers hovered for a moment before they began to dance across the keyboard. She felt an exhilarating pulse surge through her, each point morphing from fleeting thoughts into firm declarations. The centuries of privilege had built towering walls. Her father's empire was fortified with layers of avarice and ruthlessness. Exposing the truth meant breaking those stones apart, one at a time. As the list grew, corporate greed, environmental negligence, the systemic exploitation of their labor force, Jenna sensed the power of her voice solidifying. She had always been the good daughter, the obedient heir. Now she was intent on becoming the architect of her thoughts, one step at a time. Suddenly her phone buzzed, interrupting her fervor. Delane's name brightened the screen and her heart skipped. Was he checking in? She answered swiftly, needing to harness his energy for the challenge ahead. "Hey, I was just thinking about your offer for help," she said, trying to mask her eagerness with casualness. "Good," he replied, "because it's time to lay down some groundwork. I have some connections who might appreciate what you're trying to do. Build your community support, maybe gain some visibility before you confront him." Community support. The phrase hung heavy in the air. What did that even look like for someone born into privilege? "I thought the plan was to go directly to him," she countered, a hint of uncertainty creeping back in. "Direct confrontation is crucial, but you might need more than courage. If you're going to challenge your family, you'd do well to rally those affected by his decisions," Delane explained, his voice reassuring but firm. "Sometimes the loudest voices come through the quietest gatherings." Jenna pressed her lips together, weighing his words. Uniting these external forces was a daunting prospect, one she hadn't considered. Her father excluded those who questioned him. Jenna had the chance to do otherwise, but the pragmatism felt alien against her upbringing. Yet, wasn't that why she had decided to change? "I'll need to educate myself," she replied determinedly, "about how to lead effectively, how to gather support. I can't make these decisions from a place of ignorance." "Exactly," Delane affirmed. "We'll meet people, victims of decisions who can shed light on the collateral damage, paint a vivid picture of the reality that exists beyond those walls." Jenna's heart fluttered. She sensed a burgeoning clarity in her mission. With Delane's guidance, she began to conceive of the community, a collective that could transition her from singular desire to shared truth. It was this pivotal moment that shifted her perspective. The impact would extend beyond her own battle. "Let's set up meetings," she said with renewed vigor. "I'll reach out to some organizations willing to collaborate. Your expertise could be invaluable." "I'm with you," he replied. "But remember, it's fraught with risks. Your father won't fold easily." "Then we'll forge alliances that can withstand the backlash," Jenna stated, emboldened by the gravity of her commitment. The stakes had never felt higher, but paradoxically, the resonance of shared struggle drove her resolve deeper. As they exchanged logistics, Jenna's excitement mounted. She was crafting a strategy, learning how to wield her voice not solely as a weapon, but as an instrument of change. The looming confrontation with her father no longer felt like an isolated challenge, but rather a shared mission ripe with potential. But darkness loomed, a gnawing doubt, a realization that not everyone would be receptive to her attempts to unravel the empire. As she flipped her notes, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What if those she sought understanding from turned hostile? "Can I truly do this?" she pondered quietly, each heartbeat echoing her uncertainty. The path was laid before her, heavy with the promise of conflict, sacrifice, and newfound strength. Was she ready to face not just her father, but the very foundation he built? With the dawn of a new chapter creeping closer, Jenna took a deep breath. She had begun a journey of growth and realization, but the true tests lay ahead, tests that would determine this transformation's ultimate value. The clock was ticking, and she needed to prepare for the moment her courage would be put to the ultimate test. Would she emerge renewed, or become just another casualty, lost in the crossfire of her father's empire? Jenna awoke the next morning with a sense of urgency coursing through her veins. Today marked the beginning of her journey towards transformation. She moved purposefully through her morning routine, the hum of the coffee maker and the rustle of her dishes not as noisy as before, but rather as reminders of the task ahead. As she sipped her coffee, Jenna contemplated how to frame her approach. This time, she would not simply be the passive observer of her world, but rather an active participant determined to make change. The weight of her father's empire felt more like a challenge than a burden. Her resolve had hardened overnight. She pulled her laptop towards her, scrolling through a barrage of links to organizations and initiatives that had been affected by her father's actions. Each click revealed new stories of struggle, each victim a potential ally in her quest for confrontation. She was not just going to confront her father. She was on a mission to uncover the broader truths hidden underneath layers of privilege. Realizing she couldn't navigate this alone, she picked up her phone and sent Delane a message. "I need to meet with those impacted. It's time to hear their stories firsthand. Can we organize a meeting?" The reply came swiftly, filled with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. I know a group who has been fighting his policies for years. Their experiences will provide you with the ammunition you need." Her heart pounded in anticipation. This was more than just a talk. It was her chance to understand the real implications of her father's decisions. A small flicker of doubt danced at the edges of her conscience. Could she bear the weight of their pain? She inhaled sharply, her mind quelling those thoughts. This was not about her discomfort. It was about truth. With a sense of purpose, Jenna immersed herself in research, reading through first-hand testimonies and case studies detailing the environmental hazards caused by her father's company. She couldn't help but admire the bravery of those who stood up, exposing their vulnerabilities to protect their communities. This sparked a desire to embody that bravery herself. If they could face their struggles, surely she could face her father. Later that day, she met Delane at a local cafe. The air buzzed with an aura of excitement tinged with anxiety. Her stomach churned as she sat down, anticipating the conversations they were about to enter into. "Are you ready for this?" Delane asked, looking at her intently. Jenna exhaled, steadying her nerves. "I think I am, but I need to know how to listen. I can't just rush in. I want to absorb everything." "That's the spirit," he encouraged, leaning closer. "You're already on the right track by acknowledging the need to listen. Empathy holds more power than you realize." Their dialogue continued, crafted with the intent to explore, understand, and eventually challenge. They hashed out strategies that combined passion with measured tactics. Delane's insights expanded her perspective, and as the conversation deepened, she felt her vision sharpen. It was no longer a solitary mission but a channel for collective narratives of resilience and strength. Jenna's phone vibrated, interrupting her thoughts. A reminder flashed on the screen for her first meeting with the organization tomorrow. She felt the weight of anticipation like a cresting wave, surging forward toward an unknown shore. This would be the first real step, a leap from the safety of her privileged shell into the raw reality of others' experiences. But as she prepared to leave the cafe, another thought scratched at her resolve. What if the stories she heard shattered her faith in her family's legacy? What if those voices exposed deeper flaws within herself she wasn't ready to confront? Determined not to shy away from potential truths, she left the cafe with her back straightened and her mind set. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time it felt within her grasp, forming with each decision she made. As step after step carried her homeward, she turned the possibilities over in her mind. Could her father be moved? Could her voice truly matter in a legacy soaked in power and privilege? Tomorrow would surely unveil more about her path, the path leading her closer to confronting her father, not just as his daughter, but as an emerging voice of dissent. She would have to confront not just him, but the questions that danced in her mind. The stakes were higher than she ever imagined. Jenna was ready to find out just how strong the fire within her could burn. The morning sun sliced through the curtains, illuminating Jenna's determined expression as she gazed at her reflection. It was the day of her first meeting with the community representatives affected by her father's corporate decisions. Gone was the uncertain girl who had served coffee with a faint smile, merely to mask her hidden grief. Today, she was a woman on a mission, a crusader for change, who now understood her voice's power. Stepping into the community center, the reality of the struggle hit Jenna like a wave. Chairs were arranged in a circle, voices mingling in conversations polished with apprehension and anticipation. As she entered, a hush fell over the gathering, expressions shifting from skepticism to a tentative curiosity. "So you finally show up," a voice called out, the tone sharp but filled with righteousness. It belonged to Sarah, a single mother who had lost her job due to her father's ruthless fiscal decisions. Jenna could feel the weight of those words resonating. Here was a woman confronting her head-on, voicing the unfiltered truth that Jenna had long ignored. "I'm here because I want to listen," Jenna responded, swallowing her initial discomfort. "I want to understand your stories, not just how my father's decisions have hurt you, but how I can help shed light on these issues." Awareness dawned in the room, and a softer murmur rippled through the crowd. This was not simply about corporate greed. This was about lives, about families torn apart. As the meeting progressed, Jenna absorbed the heartbreak intertwined with tales of resilience, people rising against adversity. Heartbreak morphed into hope as they expressed their desires for accountability. Each testimony transformed the collective experience into an overwhelmingly powerful narrative. Jenna left the meeting with a heavy heart yet illuminated by purpose. Faces flashed through her mind, each story solidifying her resolve. This wasn't just a task, it was a calling. She had stepped onto a stage she had long been excluded from, woven into the fabric of a collective spirit that demanded truth. It felt exhilarating to connect, and yet with every insight, her mind danced with fear and doubt. How would her family react to her newfound alignment with these voices? The following day was the confrontation. Jenna stood before her father's office, her heart drumming a riotous tempo. Memories flooded back. She had once idolized him, viewing his successes only through rose-colored lenses. He was the titan, the immense figure casting a long shadow over her growing up. But today, she had a different perspective. She needed to confront not just the titan in the chair, but the legacy of abuse and ignorance underlying his empire. "Mr. Delane," she stated, her voice a calm tremor, as the door swung open. "I need to speak with you." Delane looked up, surprise mingling with concern. "Jenna, now isn't—" "It is now, Dad. Read the room. There's injustice looming that you've withheld from our family, and I intend to shed light on it." "Don't be naive," he recoiled, leaning back in his chair defensively. "This is business. You'll never understand." "Then help me understand," she interrupted, stepping closer. "These aren't just numbers on a balance sheet, they're lives. Lives that have fractured because of decisions made in this very office." A flash of realization flickered in Delane's eyes. He faltered for the briefest moment. Jenna pressed on, her heart racing against the clock ticking the seconds of challenge. People like Sarah and her children. Their futures were torn apart by the very choices you've celebrated. Now I realize my privilege can't carry the weight of silence anymore. Delane's expression shifted, his resolve cracking against the weight of her truth. Jenna could see the moment he grappled with the dissonance between his wealth and the suffering caused. "Do you think I don't realize?" he shot back, now visibly rattled. "I'm doing what's necessary. It's the way the world works." "Worlds don't have to work this way," Jenna countered, steeling her voice. "I've met those affected by your decisions. Your legacy doesn't have to mean trampling on the vulnerable. It can represent accountability and empowerment, a change of course towards better business practices. Stop hiding behind the guise of profitability." Silence stretched in the air, testing their belief systems. Suddenly a crack began to form. It was the clash of values, and the unfolding battle blurred the line between personal ties and corporate responsibility. "We know the depths of what's happening," she concluded, her voice softening but resolute. "But we also know there are always choices. We can strive for change. Will you join me?" In that moment of uncertainty, Jenna felt the trajectory of her role shift from just a daughter to a catalyst of transformation. She was fiercely defying the hand she had been dealt, no longer a pawn, but a player with the potential to rewrite the rules. Delane's gaze pierced her, and after what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, voice lower but laced with a hint of vulnerability. If we start having direct conversations about ethics in the community, I suppose we could explore more equitable practices." Elation surged through Jenna as she absorbed his words, but she also remained aware of the uphill battle ahead. His acceptance could be a long path toward active accountability. They each took a breath, the tension transforming from animosity into something almost tangible, an ember of hope dancing in the shifting shadows. A partnership began to form, one rooted in honesty, empathy, and shared responsibility. Leaving the office, Jenna felt different, starkly transformed by her experiences. The shadow of her father's legacy no longer loomed oppressively above her. Instead, she stepped into her own light, one confident and steely resolved to confront the challenges of the path ahead, embracing the arduous work that lay before her in pursuit of justice. Through setbacks, pain, and conflict lay meaningful growth, and Jenna had discovered what it meant to have her voice carry weight. She was no longer the silent daughter, but a voice for those who had been silenced. Jenna exited into the sun, her heart alive with the promise of renewal. The struggles ahead would only serve to refine her resolve as she transformed uncertainty into a force that shattered complacency. With her courage ignited and clarity illuminated, she realized that true fulfillment arose not from inherited privilege, but from a commitment to speak and act in honor of others' truths. This was her legacy reborn. Now do not miss the chance to witness more spectacular transformations. You need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support for powerful stories of overcoming adversities. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find these transformative journeys. And please comment your reactions and theories about Jenna's incredible growth. Lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.